Have you seen all the bunting going up recently? Have you seen all those Union Jacks suddenly appearing in shop windows? Have you seen those yellow hoardings at the ends of roads saying road closed 6th of May, find another route? Have you seen all those invites to the street parties that have been coming? Have you seen the paraphernalia on display everywhere? All the souvenirs and mementos, cups and saucers and plates, all with King Charles's face on. Have you seen that? The little post boxes and the telephone boxes that you can buy as key rings and things like that. Have you seen all the pictures and the posters in ordinary houses' windows with a picture of King Charles and Queen Camilla? Have you seen all of that? Everywhere you look, all down the road. Have you felt the sense of a massive celebration just about to happen any day now? Have you? I haven't. I haven't seen any of this. I haven't seen one jot of it. Doesn't make sense to me. In about 6 days' time, depending when you see this video, there's going to be a coronation. A king is going to be crowned. It's going to happen in this country. It's not happened for, 70 years. It's like the biggest thing of the year. And yet, not where I live anyway. This sort of, you wouldn't get any sense that anything. I think I've seen one shop that has a little bit of red, white and blue in the window, and that's a charity shop. And so they're being very charitable, aren't they? But everywhere else, I've not seen any sense that there's something massively important about to happen in this country. Now, I go back to the 1950s when Elizabeth was about to be crowned. I wasn't there. I'm too young to be that age, but I imagine that there was a lot of pageantry, there was a lot of expectation, there was a lot of pride in people's towns, and that no doubt the streets were strewn in buntings and all of that. But here, where I live, and I don't know about where you live, you can tell me in the comments, I've not seen anything. And that's very odd, isn't it? Because it's not something that happens every day. I mean, our queen that we did have, she lived a long time, didn't she? And she reigned for a long time. And the king that we now have, when he was prince, he was waiting for a long time. Most people, unless you were in your late 80s or 90s, will have no real memory of the last time a monarch was crowned. And so surely this is a big event. We should be celebrating, we should be proud, we should be excited. Yet I don't feel that people are excited that King Charles is going to be crowned. I don't get that feeling. Now, of course, I don't watch mainstream media and I don't read the national newspapers, so I'm probably missing it, because I'm sure that in programmes like Coronation Street and EastEnders, they're probably having loads of street parties and talking about the subject and what will Camilla wear and how dashing King Charles is and all of that, and how many medals will he have on. I'm sure they're arranging the sandwiches and all the wonderful things that you have in a street party. And in EastEnders, you can imagine they're going to close the square and there'll be bunting and there'll be music. It'll be very patriotic and all of that, won't it? And they must be talking about that, building up the storylines. It must be going on. I'm assuming it is, because I don't watch television. I have no idea. It's not my sort of thing. But in the real world, in the world that I live anyway, where I am, there is absolutely zilch interest, it would appear, in the build-up to the coronation. Now, maybe there's other things going on, of course. Maybe there's, some old duffers playing bowls. That's obviously a little bit more important. Or maybe there's the first people actually going into the seaside where I live and going, oh, it's a bit cold. And maybe that's more of a bigger event than, just some bloke getting a crown on top of his head. Although I don't know whether he actually does that really happen? He gets some oils rubbed into him, doesn't he? It's like some sort of OnlyFans page, but that all happens, and then he's got to do this oath, and that's another thing. The oath Do we actually know what he's going to say? I mean, it's quite important, isn't it? It's quite important because he is like the first among equals, isn't he? He's there to represent us. So presumably what he says, his oath, is actually majorly important, isn't it? So that if the government legislates stuff, he has the royal assent. He, on our behalf, is there to be the checks and balances and says, oh, government, goodness gracious, look what you've said. We can't possibly have that happen. No, 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 no. I don't give you the assent. I mean, that's what he is. He is the brake there to stop a government being tyrannical. I mean, it's a curious event so far that he's allowed things like precision breeding and GMO stuff into existence, seeing as he was so into organic farming. It's like something switched in his brain there. I'm not quite sure his reasoning that it's actually quite okay to meddle with the internal workings of animals and plants and the genomes and all of that. And so that's a little bit strange, seeing as somebody wanted us all to be organic farmers and be natural food and healthy and stuff. So that's hard to contend with. So when it comes to the oath, is he going to, what we would expect somebody like the king to say, is that he is going to swear allegiance to the people and our customs and traditions and be defender of the faith? Or is he still sort of toying about with that other hobby he had when he was the prince, you know, the sort of the WEF stuff, the Great Reset, because of course he launched all of that, where, you know, the WEF and the WHO, where they want to take away the sovereignty of all nations and be able to say when there's the next medical emergency or a global warming emergency, and also have the power to say to everyone, not just the government, but to everyone in that nation, how they should respond, you know, whether they need to have something injected into them, whether they should be wearing masks, or whether they should be imprisoned in their houses and not go out in the beautiful sunshine, or even into the countryside. You know, I don't know whether he's still playing about with that. I thought that he said that he was having to drop all of that. So maybe as part of the coronation, and this would be fantastic, and if you're watching, Charles, maybe you could actually just give us the great retraction, just to confirm, you know, you've got nothing to do with those meddling people at the WEF, you know, and the WHO who want to take our sovereignty away, because surely a kind and benevolent and ruling king would never want that for his people. Surely he wouldn't want any of that. And I'm sure he's bound to say, no, thank you very much. Thank you, Uncle Schwab and all your mates. We don't want any of that nonsense. No, 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 I'm the king of this amazing nation, and we're not putting up with any of that. So surely that's okay. But it would be nice, would it not, to actually see the oath, seeing as we are the people. And we have the internet now. I mean, good old Queenie Liz, she didn't have the internet. It was going to be a bit less tricky to get the oath to everybody. It would be lovely if we all had a copy of it on our phones or printed off or on our computers and laptops. So as he's saying it, we could follow the words and make sure that everything was said correctly, rather than sort of perhaps mealy-mouthed or in a little bit of a confusing state. It'd be good, you know, like the old song sheets with the dot that goes along and tells you the words. That would be great, would it not? Now, park that just for a moment, because I don't know if you're aware, there's a court case going on. I believe it's in South Africa. Anyway, the point being is this is a court case against what we've gone through, that medical emergency that I daren't say too much about in case I get another YouTube strike. You know how these things work. So I don't want to upset anybody. But that event that happened 3 years ago, and in which the response from the people I've just mentioned, those think tanks, was to mandate certain things and really push a certain substance that most people felt obliged to take, and in parts of the world forced to take. Well, there's a court case there that's going to make all the facts of that come out, and I think when the court case happens and these facts, the true facts, not the nonsense that we've been told, but the actual true facts that most of us are sort of gathered now, comes out in the open, and we reveal how governments, and particularly our government, has been complicit in pushing a completely erroneous narrative, one that they knew was nefarious, in fact, and detrimental to the people. When this court case happens, I honestly believe that the government and Parliament and the Prime Minister's office, these corporations, these businesses, because that's what they are. You only have to look at Dun and Bradstreet to realise that the government and the Parliament and the Prime Minister's office is actually a trading business, a business there, a corporation, to make money. That's their sole purpose. When this court case comes out, we'll find out this so-called benevolent and kind business, corporation, when it hits the fan and it all comes out, I think the government, the Parliament and the Prime Minister's office are finished. I think it's finished, because once the people actually know and realise what has happened to them by the people they've apparently voted in to help them and guide them and administer them, is actually been something that has been very detrimental and nefarious and almost, well, I'm trying to think of words which would describe this without causing too much ruckus, I suppose, but sort of pure evil in a way, if you like. You know, the little man with the horns and the red face and his little trident thing, that type of stuff. Sadistic, you could say. Anyway, when it all comes out and the Parliament folds, what's left? Well, then all that's left, in theory, is the king. The king would have to step in, wouldn't he? The one that we're going to crown, the one whose oath we don't know what his allegiance are, the one that has been, up until extremely recently, so he says, involved with the very people who've been telling the government to give us the you-know-what. So do we want him, when the thing hits the fan, do we want him to actually then step in and rule us? Because if we don't, we have the power not to have him, because in the old days, go back far enough, we used to choose our leaders. We used to choose the king. It wasn't the sort of hereditary nonsense that we've been led to believe it is. It was the choice. It was chosen somebody who was an appropriate person, not somebody who's a bit mealy-mouthed and won't tell us what his allegiances are or won't quite tell us what the oath is, and none of that. So I'm indebted to remind us just what we can do here, thanks to David, who actually sent me a letter, an actual physical letter, because he didn't trust that email and electronic technology and digital stuff isn't being read. He's pretty convinced that everything is being read or scanned for keywords. So he sent me a letter, and well done for you for working out where I was. And just to end with, he just wanted to remind me, of course, that there is, of course, a clause, a way out of all of this if we don't want what is happening. We, the sovereign people. And he reminded me of lawful rebellion. And I just want to read what has been written here. Your right under Magna Carta. Under Article 61 of Magna Carta 1215, the founding document of the Constitution, we have a right to enter into lawful rebellion if we feel that we are being governed unjustly. Contrary to common belief, our sovereign and her government are only there to govern us and not to rule us. And this must be done within the constraint of our common law and the freedoms asserted to us by such law. Nothing can become law in this country if it falls outside of this simple constraint. Article 61 shows quite clearly who really holds the power in this country. That being, quite simply, is us, the people. We have sovereignty, not any parliament, and nor can this be taken away by any parliament who claim to have taken the people's sovereignty. So there you go. Article 61. It's in our Constitution, and the Constitution is there for us against and to protect us against the Parliament and the sovereign or the king. We have sovereignty. So if we find ourselves in this situation that the government collapses and King Charles, who's yet to tell us his oath and what he really means, and we only look and see the things he has done and the people that he's been associating with and the acts, the new acts that he suddenly decided is going to be good for us, i.e. the precision breeding, then maybe when this all happens, he isn't necessarily the right person to be our king. Just a thought. I mean, it's almost there, isn't it? It's almost there, because when you go down in the street and you look for the bunting and you look for the flag and you look for the sense that people are actually embracing this man to be our sovereign, it's very difficult to find it, isn't it?